there are still a few options. Time is running out, of course, because like I said, Wednesday, July 16th is when the execution will happen. But some last-ditch options that Nimisha Priya and her family really have is one, ensuring somehow a presidential pardon happens in Yemen. Right now, this looks extremely unlikely because the Yemeni government has said, look, we cannot step in this matter or offer any reprieve to Nimisha. Second, that the victim's family accepts blood money. People who've been campaigning for Nimisha's release have managed to gather money, and we understand that's about $1 million, roughly about 8.6 crore rupees. But at this point, the victim's family hasn't accepted that amount. It remains to be seen whether they'll accept 1 million. Are they expecting more? But then there's a limit to the amount also that Nimisha's family has been able to put together. Also, the third option is a Yemeni pardon due to diplomatic intervention. This is something that's been attempted for the last many weeks, for the last many months, even years, as Nimisha's lawyers tell us. But it's not really worked because Yemen has made it very clear that this is not something that they're willing to tackle diplomatically as well. Another option is for international human rights appeal to highlight how Nimisha too was abused, in her case, in her appeal, remember, she had said that she was financially, physically, mentally abused, that the victim here, who she had murdered, had kept her passport and didn't give it to her, which is what led to that scuffle and then his death. So on those grounds, also appealing, saying she had no choice. Option number 5, judicial review that could push the execution. By push, we mean delay it further and then buy more time for you to explore other avenues, other options. Well, at this point, there's no hearing that's expected to take place in the Yemeni courts, so we'll have to see whether this is even a possibility. But I'd like to bring in Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar, former Indian diplomat, to join us on this broadcast. Good evening, Ambassador Sajjanar. Unfortunate and heartbreaking, really, what's happening with Nimisha Priya. But today, in the Supreme Court, the central government said that, look, there's only so much we can do. We've explored all options and there's nothing that we can do considering the Yemeni government is not willing to, push this forward. What do you think, in your view, Ambassador Sajjanar? Is this something that India can, pile pressure on Yemen, perhaps, can do something about diplomatically?
Yeah, thank you very much, Akshita, for having me. Yes, you have given all the details very clearly, and you have, laid out the whole case. I think I could add to that a couple of points. Number one is that this is in Sanaa. She has been incarcerated. Nimisha Priya has been incarcerated in Sanaa. That is controlled by the Houthis. Now, Houthis have been so much in the news of late. So, India has not recognized the Houthi government, the Houthi administration. We do not have an embassy there. So, whatever attempts that have been made by the Indian government, they have been made basically on an informal level because we don't have any diplomatic representation there. So, that further complicates the issue. Because, in all the other cases, you would have seen, whether it was even one of our nurses, whether it was in Afghanistan or it was in Syria, very places of this nature where there is conflict, where there is war going on. But India has been able to reach out to the concerned authorities and has been able to get positive decision from there. But Yemen, and particularly the Sanaa ruled area, because if it had been in Aden, because that is internationally recognized, we have a presence there also, so I think it would have been simpler. But at the moment, as you have put it very correctly, Akshita, it is basically the informal manner approach that could yield some results, that could yield some positive dividends. Okay. And in that context, I think it is approaching some of the sheikhs who might be more favorably inclined towards the Houthi administration, towards the Sanaa government. I think that has, I can see a ray of hope there that, could definitely
Yes, and that's something that activist groups have been doing, reaching out to sheikhs, to clerics who are in India, also highly influential in Yemen. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that that will provide some reprieve to Nimisha as well. But like I said, time is of the essence here. We've got just about 1.5 days to go before her execution. I just want to break down for our viewers, and Ambassador Sajjanar, I request you to stay with us. I just want to break down the laws currently in Yemen on what happens if one of their nationals, their citizens, are murdered. Why is it that Nimisha Priya is facing execution right now? Well, as far as murder goes, it's punishable by death. It's referred to as qisas in Yemeni law. Intentional murder could lead to execution if the victim's family demands it. In this case, in Nimisha Priya's case, the victim's family very much demanded it, which is why you're seeing a death punishment being given to Nimisha. Blood money as an alternative is also something that's considered all right and acceptable by Yemeni law, which is why we've been referring to it as one of the options for Nimisha Priya here. The victim's family can go ahead and forgive the killer in exchange for blood money, avoiding execution. But the catch here is that the victim's family will dictate how much. So, there can be no limit to that. If they are willing to even look at this, is referred to as diya, then they will go ahead and set the amount that they expect. Again, in Nimisha's case, the money that they've offered is $1 million, which so far has been rejected. Leniency for honor killings. So imagine this, while murder is punishable by death, as far as honor killings go, there is an article in Yemeni law that actually allows reduced sentences for honor-based killings by male relatives. Sounds terribly regressive? Well, it is. That's how it is in Yemen. Essentially, that if a male relative kills his family members as an honor killing, they can ensure reduced sentences, sometimes just 1 to 2 years. Even juveniles are not legally executable. Execution of minors is banned, but you see that happening, unfortunately, in Yemen. There have been multiple such documented cases of the fact that some people not having documents leads to violations, leads to executions of minors as well. But also, mind you, that as far as hangings, executions are concerned, a presidential approval is required by law. No death sentence can be carried out without the president's approval. In the case of Nimisha Priya, unfortunately, that approval has already come in. Now, while what we've described to you is the state law, is the law followed in Yemen, there's a tribal law. There are tribal regions in Yemen where things are very different, where their law essentially decides what happens. So murders are often settled through diya, which I told you was blood money, through exile or through mediation. So in some cases, tribal laws can also kick in. I want you to listen into a conversation that my colleague Geeta Mohan had with Samuel Jerome, who's working closely with the Save Nimisha Priya Action Council. He spoke to her last week on all the efforts being taken up right now to save Nimisha.
What's happening on the ground? As somebody who's worked on this case ever since the beginning of the case, how do you see, or how hopeful are you that there could be a positive turn of events and this execution can actually stop?
Actually, there are two distinct things in this case. One is the legal, the other is the tribal. So the legal has done its part. So that is where we have reached, and the execution date has come. Now, in the tribal part, you need to understand that we have already directly spoken with the family. Okay. And the offer had been given. There is no response from the family, which is somewhat very negative which is very negative. So
basically blood money.
But see, now again, I need to clarify what blood money is. There is nothing called blood money. If the family forgives, then there is a money to be paid that is called the blood money. Families don't forgive because money is being paid. So people have to clearly understand this. If the family forgives, yes, then there is a negotiated blood money. So we had given an offer. I mean, in case that if the family forgives, and that this is what we could offer, and that is to the tune of $1 million plus medical assistance and assistance to the brother of the deceased if he wants to settle in UAE or Saudi Arabia. So these are the offer that we have put it on the table.
Up until now, Samuel, you're saying the family is not convinced.
What
are they saying? What are they saying?
No, they are not saying anything. No, they are not saying anything. That's the problem. They are not saying yes or they are not saying no. Which I take it as, I mean, me being optimistic, the window is there. That is what, I mean, if there is a no, it could be a no, but then I'm optimistic to see that there is a way forward. But again, I mean, I don't want to put the government of India in a difficult situation. They have really hurt, and the very thing that Nimisha is alive because then Minister of State General V.K. Singh gave a letter for this lady to be brought to due legal things. So that is why she was brought into that legal thing, and she's alive because of this letter.
Samuel, how's the family holding up? Are they in Sanaa?
Yeah, the mother is in my home in Sana. She is there, and I did speak to her yesterday night, and we didn't. She didn't spoil. I mean, she has been. I mean, to be honest, I mean, she's very emotional. So, I mean, like, I didn't want to talk to her until until I go there. Really, I mean, like, so I just let it. I let it be like that. Whatever she's hearing from the news and all those things, I keep it as it. So until I am physically there, then I can handle the situation myself because she's a very fragile lady.
And there are multiple such lawyers, activists, not just in Yemen, but here in India too, who are doing everything they can to attempt and save Nimisha from execution. Ambassador Sajjanar, one of the options that we also referred to during this broadcast is on international human rights law. Do you think that can also help in kind of preventing Nimisha's execution? Because you look at the extraordinary details of this case, of why she killed this man. Will that matter? Will that count?
You know, Akshita, I would have thought that when the, the arguments for the case were going on, if that had been put forward and, we had used the good offices of the international human rights organizations and brought in the international human rights law, basically that she was acting in self-defense, because it is... she had been oppressed so much, she had been sort of, taken advantage of so much, and she was fighting for her rights, and as a result of that, this accident took place and her partner got killed. At that time, if we had come up and if the international human rights organizations had also stepped in, possibly there could have been some, something that we could have gone by. But right now, as you mentioned very clearly, the decision has been taken. The decision has gone to the highest authority, that is to the president, and we've got the concurrence. So they've got the concurrence from the president for her execution. So, reopening the case at this time on that basis, to me, it appears to be rather difficult. So, these two options that we've been discussing in the program, one is possibility of providing blood money to the victim's family, and the second is through informal channels, both in the region as well as within India, to sort of reach out to the authorities that be in Sanaa, in Yemen, to persuade them to hold this death sentence execution in abeyance.
Unfortunately, it's going to take nothing short of a miracle to save Nimisha Priya, because the clock is ticking and we're at the very end. We're just about less than 2 days away from her execution. So it's going to take a miracle essentially to save her right now. But we hope that happens. We hope somehow she is saved. Thanks very much, Ambassador Sajjanar, for joining us with your view on what could transpire and how India perhaps could step in. It's rather challenging, rather difficult for India also diplomatically to kind of engage this regime and ensure that there is some reprieve for Nimisha Priya, which is why for the last many years, while this has dragged on, that's pretty much all that India has been able to do. But like I said, the execution, the hanging is slated to happen on Wednesday, and we're going to hope and pray that some reprieve comes Nimisha Priya and her family's way.